South Carolina lawmakers have put a hold on voting for a new contract for I-526. In this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I speak exclusively with Lisa Jones-Turansky of the Coastal Conservation League. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. And listen to this interview later on the free Quintin's Close-Ups iHeartRadio podcast. Lisa Jones-Turansky, it is so good to see you.
It's good to see you too, Quintin.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. You know, you and I have known each other for a while.
Yeah.
And obviously, I believe you're the Chief Marketing Officer for the Coastal Conservation League.
I'm the Chief Strategy Officer.
That's right.
Yeah.
What is it like to be you these days?
Well, how long do we have?
Plenty of tape here.
No, it's a great time to be at the Coastal Conservation League, and it's a great time to live in this part of the world. It's just, I mean, on a day like today, beautiful weather. Right. We do have a lot of pressing issues, so there's always something to do to keep it this great place and to keep the quality of life that we enjoy today. But it's really, we're in a great place.
That is so great to hear. You talk about pressing issues. Let me take you to yesterday, February 20th. This is the headline in an article written by Jamie Ludgrove of the Post and Courier. It says this: SC lawmakers postpone vote on new contract for long-delayed I-526 extension. And let me take you to the actual article. It reads this: lawmakers on the committee that approves all major state projects defer to vote on a new contract between the State Transportation Panel and Charleston County to complete the roadway. Instead, they took the rare step of creating a subcommittee to review the county's financing plan. Can I break that down?
Yeah.
Okay, it says this.
Please.
Okay, it says this. They are creating a subcommittee to review the county's financing plan. Why subcommittee? Why now? And my second question is, what is the county's financing plan in your mind?
Well, those are great questions. The subcommittee is actually a subcommittee of a committee in the state government, which is the Joint Bond Review Committee. And the subcommittee is a rare step because usually the Joint Bond Review Committee is responsible for ensuring that the contracts that come to them are in the best interest of the state, that they're fiscally reliable and airtight, and we're not going to get ourselves into a bunch of trouble in the future with the contracts we're approving. Typically, by the time contracts get to them, they have been through a lot of review, and there's not a lot of debate at the level of the JBRC, the Joint Bond Review Committee. But this time there was a big question mark, and I really want to take a moment to commend Senator Hugh Leatherman and some of the other folks I know who have worked with us to help flag a concern that Charleston County has not shown where their portion of the money is going to come from in the contract. And that contract is basically made up of three parts. Okay. You have the South Carolina Department of Transportation, right, the State Transportation Infrastructure Bank, right, and then you have Charleston County. Well, the State Transportation Infrastructure Bank has been on the hook for $420 million for 526 for a while, for years. But the argument has always been, now that the cost has gone up from, I believe it was, first it was $420 million, then it was $535 million, and now it's currently somewhere around $725 million. Could be as high as $750 million, could even be higher. It's been a while since that cost estimate. So the question is, who's going to take on the cost overruns? And that's been the rub. It hasn't been the $420 million that were committed. It's been that $300 million and plus any other fees that we can't anticipate. And if the price goes up, who pays those? Well, Charleston County came into the State Infrastructure Bank in early January and said, we'll take on those costs. We have no problem. Apparently, we have all the money in the world. But they said, we will pay that $300 million cost overrun, and we will also pay any additional fees associated with permitting or legal fees or any other fees. And if the costs mount over time, they'll pay those too. So they don't really know the amount of debt that they've agreed to. And the real problem is that when we pushed them on where are these funds coming from, they first said they're coming from the 2016 sales tax money, that there's enough money in that sales tax for the projects. Well, we did the math. We looked back at the ordinance that they voted on with the projects listed, and between the projects they listed and the Greenbelt commitments and servicing debt, it all added up to $2.1 billion. It actually added up to more than that, which is the amount that will be generated over 25 years from the half-cent sales tax. So we asked if these are the projects, and it didn't include 526, and we voted in 2016 on this list of projects that you approved by ordinance, then where's this money coming from? And they said, oh, well, it's the 2006 half-cent sales tax, which you'll probably remember. There was a half-cent sales tax vote in 2004. It didn't pass because projects weren't listed. Then they listed projects, did not have 526 on the list, and then it passed in 2006. Well, first of all, there's no documentation that shows where this money is. There's no kind of cash flow that's been provided to show, oh, this project was short, this project was short, this project we didn't do. They just said, trust us. It's leftover money. So all we're asking is just show us where that came from. So that was kind of what we approached Charleston County with. And then the state Joint Bond Review Committee is just asking the same question. It's really basic. If you say that you have $300 million that you didn't have at the beginning of the year, then it's kind of questionable as to where that came from, unless you can provide the source. And so the Joint Bond Review Committee is just saying, where's the money coming from?
And matter of fact, you talked earlier about Hugh Leatherman. I understand that in previous times, he basically says he is not opposed to the project, but wants to do more, quote, due diligence on funding plans.
Yeah. Well, that's the heart of the matter right there. It really shouldn't matter right now whether you're pro 526 or anti 526. Right now, the issue is, what is the financial obligation we're taking on? And have we been duped? Have we had a bait and switch happen when we voted on the half-cent sales tax? Is this money something that is committed to other bigger priorities? And those priority projects are everything from transit and Main and 17, Highway 41, airport road improvements, Palmetto Commerce Parkway. These are really important local projects. And so I think the question that Senator Leatherman is asking is not only important because, it's important to us in Charleston County, but if Charleston County defaults and in the future there's a different council and they say, well, we didn't commit to this amount of money and we've promised it by ordinance to pay for all these other projects, we can't pay for 526, then it's the state that is on the hook for 526. So Senator Leatherman is doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing as the chairman of the Joint Bond Review Committee, and making sure that the state does not end up taking on a project that they can't afford. And, it would ultimately be the responsibility of the Department of Transportation. And we already know that they are spread thin and certainly don't want to take from statewide priorities.
Let me get to the other side. I have to be fair here.
Yeah.
And Elliot Summey basically spoke with Jamie Lovegrove of the Post-Courier. He says, quote, everything is great, unquote, adding that the county will continue to move ahead with the project. He also says this, quote, I don't even pretend to understand what the Joint Bond Review Committee does, unquote. He also says this, quote, we spent $3 million on the project last week. We continue to get bills from the Department of Transportation, and we'll continue to pay them. We're moving right along, unquote. Tell me, do you know how many bills have they received from the Department of Transportation thus far?
I don't know how many bills they've received. I do know you and I read in the Post and Courier before this article ran that there are properties that they've been purchasing now for years. And I do think that there is some research that could be done into the relationships of some elected officials and the people who profited from those real estate transactions. I don't know, to answer your question, I don't know how often they get billed. That's a great question as well. It's all about transparency. If what they're doing is above board and perfectly in the interest of all of the people who have voted for these projects and for them, then we think they should just show us the receipts, show us your revenue and your payments, and show us also, though, the commitments that you've made to these sales tax projects and the timeline and the costs for those. How are those being affected? And that's really what we haven't seen. I do just want to say that with the Joint Bond Review Committee and Chairman Summey not having any idea what they do, we just we use Google, and you can just put in South Carolina Joint Bond Review Committee, and it takes you right to the statute, and there's clear criteria laid out. And one of the most important things that I would like to flag for Chairman Summey is that the Joint Bond Review Committee is put into place to make sure that the state priorities are funded and covered. And 526 is not a state priority. It's not even on the priority list anywhere. It's listed as 15th on the regional priority list. So really, it's important to understand what the Joint Bond Review Committee does, because they are a critical body that ensures that our tax dollars aren't just at the will of someone, just spending them without understanding what the implications are for our future bottom line here as residents in Charleston County.
Let me go back to the quote he says. He said this quote, "We spent $3 million on the project last week." So with those $3 million they allegedly spent, do you know exactly what that money went towards as far as 526?
We should, shouldn't we? We really should know exactly what that money went towards. I don't know exactly what that $3 million went towards. I don't even know where it came from. I don't know where it came from, and I don't know what it went towards. And I think that is one of the questions that this Joint Bond Review Committee subcommittee is digging into. You can't just mess around. We have learned some lessons here in South Carolina. We have learned from VC Summer, where, billions of dollars were lost as a result of just trust me politics, I like to call it. And we've learned from the Navy Hospital, $33 million. Gosh, I sure could have used that in my neighborhood. So there's a lot of there are a lot of lessons learned that we need to take the time to address what happened and how can we make it better. And I think that's what we're doing right now. We're hitting the pause button and we're saying, what's happening? Where is this money coming from? Where's it going before it's too late? Because once the money's spent and it's gone, then there's very little you can do about it. So it's an important step, and it should, be taken seriously.
And State Transportation Secretary Christy Hall said last week, according to the Post-Courier, that the preliminary work, which would lead to a final design of a roadway and construction, could take about 3 years. Have you all gotten a copy of that final design of the roadway and the construction yet?
No. The final design and construction? No, that has not been finalized yet.
And I know McMaster basically told Post-Courier this too. He is confident that the latest delay will, quote, will have no impact on 526 being completed, unquote. And that's coming from McMaster's spokesperson.
Sure.
How much confidence do you guys have right now?
Well, what's interesting about that statement is that it doesn't put a timeline on it. It says, I have no doubt that it will be completed. I hope that that's not the case, but I also know, and I imagine if you press these folks who make those claims, that they will agree that this project is not going to even break ground within the next decade. And we are no closer today to seeing it happen than we were 5 years ago. So all of these statements are really just, I think, more hopes and political posturing than reality. The National Environmental Protection Act has the environmental impact, not to bore you, the environmental impact statement process, which is a long process. It takes a lot of public engagement. It's an important process. But, and we still have a lot of steps to go through with that. We have permitting. Permitting has not happened. The old environmental impact statement needs updating. cost estimate needs updating. There are just a lot of pieces that need to be moved that aren't moving. And so one thing that I just really hope people take away from this interview is that we are being divided by this issue. We are being divided by 526 into pro and anti. And really, we should all be pro local projects. Stop focusing on 526. It's not going to be built for a decade. That's just a fact. But there are projects right now that could address traffic and all of the frustrations that people on Johns Island, West Ashley, James Island have that are much less expensive, that we actually funded through the half-cent sales tax, that we should be demanding get built now. That flyover at Main and 17, that road floods. We got to get a flyover there. We got to get traffic moving through the choke points. That the lane that was added on Maybank Highway, we got calls the next day, well, the next week or so, saying, I can't believe it. The traffic on Maybank, the problem solved. The bridge doesn't back up anymore. Well, that's just a part of the pitchfork design that we have been advocating for, that if they had completed the full pitchfork, that intersection wouldn't get congested. So all of these local projects, I don't care what you think about 526. If you want traffic congestion to get better, you should be pushing your elected officials to complete these local projects.
How much would these local projects cost if you were to take away 526?
Well, that's the big question. I mean, these projects added up to $2.1 billion. Okay. I mean, with the Greenbelt and the other fees. And so I can't answer that because we still don't know where the money's coming from for 526. Okay. So, but this much I can tell you: if you took 420 million, let's not even talk about 725 million, but if you took 420 million today and put it to use today on those local projects, and you made road improvements, intersection improvements, you worked on lights, you worked on every single local issue that needs to be improved, I feel confident 420 million could solve that problem.
And let me get back to the governor's spokesperson statement to Jamie Lovegrove of the Post-Courier. He also added this too, quote, "This project has been years in the making, and because of an unprecedented level of communication and coordination, we're closer to completing it than ever before." In your mind, what is that level of coordination and communication?
That means backroom deals. That's a fancy way of saying backroom deals. That we made a lot of calls and we met. They bragged about it at the State Transportation Infrastructure Bank that they spent the holidays together. They were working deals out. This is money that is being funded by public taxpayers. And these guys are working it out in an unprecedented level of coordination. And that, frankly, is just a dressed up way of saying we worked it out behind closed doors faster than we've ever been able to do it before. And frankly, that brings me no comfort. And I really, again, no matter what side you're on 526, it's just not in the best interest of South Carolina to continue touting this type of government where we get things done without anyone else seeing how it happens, and we're proud of it. That's not what America's about. It's not about doing things privately and then bragging about it. It's about doing what you told the people you were going to do and being transparent and accountable. And that really is in what I look for in an elected official.
Well, thank you so much for this time. I really appreciate it.
This was such an honor.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
Likewise, always.
Yeah. Okay. Take care.
You too.